Hello, I'm Scott Reiten, and it's my pleasure to serve as Decatur's city manager and to bring you periodic, usually weekly, updates about what's going on with the COVID pandemic, as well as other activity from your local government. Decatur and Macon County are in Region 6, at least for purposes of COVID statistical reporting. The latest positivity rate for that Region 6 is 4.6%, and the positivity rate for Macon County has now dropped to 3.2%. This is really good news, and it's verification that some of the containment measures enacted in the past have worked to bring those numbers down. We are all very pleased that we can come off of lockdown status and gradually reopen our local economy and resume at least some semblance of normal life. But I cannot emphasize enough the need for continued caution and vigilance as we reopen. New strains of the COVID-19 virus continue to spread across our country and have already reached the state of Illinois. No one wants to return to those Tier 1 shutdowns. So, common sense precautions like mask use and social distancing, spacing of tables, rigorous cleaning, and other measures should remain a part of our routines, both at home, but especially when we're out in public. The mask ordinance is still in force in Decatur for indoor public places, and overcrowding in public places is still an offense. But apart from any kind of city enforcement, it's really perhaps much more likely, much more effective that you as individuals can simply self-enforce. By that I mean, if you walk into a restaurant or other public place and you found that it's crowded or that masks are not being used, talk to the manager. And if you're not satisfied or you feel uncomfortable, take your business someplace else. After all, it's your choice where you do business. The Illinois Department of Public Health's COVID testing site at the Decatur Civic Center parking lot continues in operation on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. They will not be open this Saturday, but they will resume testing next week. Although the city is not involved in any of the vaccine distribution that's going on, we acknowledge that there have been frustrations about the availability of vaccines. Macon County and much of Illinois remains in what they call Phase 1B for vaccine delivery. This means that persons over the age of 65 and first responders and essential workers should be receiving vaccines while others wait. Sadly, Macon County health officials have been pretty much left in the dark from week to week about how many vaccines they're going to receive from the state of Illinois for subsequent distribution to the public. And local demand greatly exceeds these unpredictable supplies. When we get to Phase 1C, this will include persons aged 16 to 64 years of age with underlying medical conditions and any essential or exposed frontline workers that haven't been covered by 1B. Earlier this week, the City of Decatur announced the award of 66 small business grants totaling more than $600,000. Individual grants varied in their amount, of course, based on what kind of documented COVID business losses the business might have had, but no individual grant exceeded $20,000. The City of Decatur was given very little time by the state government to push these funds through to the small businesses that needed them most. We obtained the funds in late December and had to allocate them by January 8th. Although the city's community development staff worked tirelessly to get these funds to the 66 recipients, they were not able to get all the funds distributed. Thankfully, based on some new federal and state actions in early January, the city of Decatur was given additional time to make more of these unallocated grant funds available to small businesses here in Decatur that need them. But the reimbursements still have to be for COVID-related business losses that were incurred in 2020, not continuing losses that might go into 2021. And there are strict eligibility requirements attached to these business grant funds. Nevertheless, if you missed hearing about it and you believe that you still have eligible 2020 business losses, please contact our Community Development Office. At their last regular meeting, the Decatur City Council took action on several other items not COVID related that might also be of interest to you. They approved the contracts necessary to replace the Center Street Bridge over on the west side of the city. That construction project will run through the upcoming public works season. It is funded by an 80% grant we received from the federal government. The bridge will be closed to regular traffic during the construction season, but the city has made provisions for making sure that a detour is in place for people that use the Stevens Creek Trail throughout the period of construction. The City Council also approved a contract to separate storm and sanitary sewers in the neighborhoods northwest of the intersection of Grand and Route 48. This area of the city is a top priority for the city because it sees far too many sewer overflows and backups during periods of heavy rain. This project, when it's finished, will solve the problem. Although the city has made significant progress over the last 4 or 5 years in reducing the number of sewer backups in private residences' basements, the City Council wants to reduce that number even further. For this reason, the Council this week increased the public funding available for homeowners that want to install what's called overhead backflow plumbing in their basements or in their homes. In the past, the city and the sanitary district reimbursed up to 75% of the cost of this improvement to private property. But to encourage even more installations of this effective solution, the City Council recently approved paying 100% of those costs, up to $10,000 per house. So if you own your home and you experience sewage backups in your basement or lower level plumbing fixtures, call the Public Works Department and see if you might be a candidate for this effective program. The City Council also approved an agreement with Macon County to take over 67 unclaimed lots that were not purchased in their annual tax foreclosure sale. These lots will be managed along with hundreds of other surplus properties in the city's property inventory. Now, eventually, we want to dispose of these properties, get them back on the tax rolls, and productively repurpose them. In the last year alone, the City Council has taken several actions to make it easier for owners of property next to these vacant lots that are owned by the city to acquire them and use them, say, as extensions of their existing yards. We sell many of these tracts to adjoining owners with clear titles for just $700. Nonprofit entities wanting to develop surplus lots can usually acquire them for next to nothing. If you would like to get a better idea of the extent as well as the location of all of these city surplus properties, you can view a map of them under the Neighborhood Revitalization tab at the city's website. And you can call the Community Development Department if you have interest in acquiring one or more of these properties. I'd also like to remind everyone, again, to participate in the elections of your city government later this month and then again in April. But please remember, this year you'll need to vote twice for city council candidates. And that sounds like a corrupt thing, but let me explain. First, the February 23 primary election, which will reduce the number of candidates down to 6, and then on April 6th at the general municipal election, we will reduce the candidates from 6 down to the 3 that'll be seated on the city council. Advance voting at the county election office has already started, so please find time, twice, to participate in both elections. Thank you for all the feedback that you provide to your local government, to the elected officials and to our staff, and for all that you do to help us make Decatur better.